Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are just waiting for a few more people to join, and then we will get started. It's great to see people joining, so thank you for coming back. And if you are new here, welcome. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I just said welcome. It's a nice sunny day in Lancaster today. You can see behind us there's a little bit of a glow, which is nice.
Makes a change. We've had a few customers that have had a lot of snow, especially up in Scotland.
Yeah,
apparently.
we don't get
We
it.
haven't had much. We
No.
live by the sea.
It's too salty.
Too salty. So we will jump in.
So welcome to our first workshop webinar of 2025. Today we're going to be working through a step-by-step to build a new dashboard area focused on your financial data for the year.
So we'll be covering quite a lot of ground today. There'll be 11 gadgets in total. To make sure that you can refer back to any of the steps, the session is being recorded. The webinar will be posted on YouTube later today, and we'll create a chapter in the video for each of the dashboard gadgets, so to make it easy for you to jump straight to the gadget that you're interested in creating.
Okay, so a little bit about us before we jump in. My name is Sarah and I am one of the customer support advisors here, and we've got Pippa in the front. Pippa's not joining us today because she avoids financials at all costs.
And I'm Jack, I'm one of the customer success managers at Access Planet. So we'll jump in and we'll have a look at the agenda for what we'll be covering today.
Yeah, so today we're going through 4 sets of data for our dashboard reporting. So first, Jack will be showing us how to create gadgets to show us year-to-date figures. Then I'll be walking through gadgets that will report on the balance of your overdue invoices. Jack's then going to take us through refund data gadgets, which will be helpful for reconciliation. And finally, I'll be wrapping up with 2 gadgets that show us the financial forecast for our courses running throughout the year. Okay.
Perfect. So thanks. Before we dive into building the dashboard, we're first going to give you an overview of what we're looking to create. So this is going to be the end result of today's dashboard. So as I mentioned, we're going to be creating 11 gadgets. So in our version of the dashboard, we've also added some of the HTML gadgets to kind of group the sections together. So you can see here we've got the year-to-date section and the overdue balances section. These are totally optional, but they just make the dashboard a bit more easy to read, find the information that you need easier, and they're also really easy to create using the HTML gadget type. So there are 3 gadgets included in our year-to-date section. So the first, this is our year-to-date overview. So as I mentioned at the top, we've got the HTML, which gives us the title. We've got 2 statistics with the green color here. You can see these are showing the total payments and refunds and the invoices raised. So the first one is showing us a pound figure of the total payments year-to-date. And the bottom one here is showing us how many invoices were raised within that year. And then on the right-hand side here, we've got showing the types of payment method that people are using. So you can see we've got our 3 different transaction methods and the total amount and how many transactions. So this is a summary gadget, and we'll be diving into these a bit more later on.
Brilliant. And now we've got our overdue balances section. So on the left-hand side, in our sort of maroon colour, we've got our total overdue invoices. So that is a sum of the value of our total overdue invoices. And then underneath that, we have the number of overdue invoices. So that is amounting to that total. And then on our right-hand side here, we have the breakdown of that amount across our customers. So we can see who owes us the most and across how many invoices.
Perfect. And then we move on to the refund section of the dashboard. So you can see in the blue color, we've got another 2 statistic gadgets. This is showing us the total amount of refunds in the last 14 days. One thing to note with refunds, it'll always be a minus number because we're in effect giving that money back to someone. And then in the bottom statistic, we've got the how many refunds we've processed in the last 14 days. And on the right-hand side, that's giving you a bit more of a breakdown of actually the what these numbers on the left are. This is the breakdown of basically what they are. So where we're getting these numbers from.
Brilliant. And then we have our course performance. So on the left-hand side here, again, a summary gadget, really useful one here where we're grouping by our course template, and then the total expected income, the total expenditure, and the expected profitability of those courses. So really useful to see which of your courses are performing best and the ones that maybe need a little bit more of a push. And then on the right hand side, again, like we have in our other gadgets, we've got a breakdown of those upcoming courses with the income, expenditure and profitability exposed in there.
Perfect. So this is what we're going to be creating throughout this webinar. So now that we're acquainted with the dashboard and its gadgets, we're going to start with building it.
Okay. So first thing that we need to do is to create a new dashboard area. So whilst we do that, I'm going to show you also how to add that HTML gadget to add the sections into. So as I said, first we're creating an area by clicking Add Area, giving that a name of Annual Finance Dashboard. When we get that, we have our blank dashboard and I can add a gadget now. I'm going to choose the HTML type, add that. I'm going to extend it to the size that I want, so covering the full screen. And then in the settings, I'm going to give it a name. So this is going to be my year to date. And that's my financial overview. And then I'm just going to put that same text into the HTML. And this is where I can change the font size. I can make the font bold. I can change the font color, set it up however you would like. You could even add in logos here if you wanted to, or images. So there, I've just amended that text color and save that there. So now I have my first section ready to go.
Perfect. So this is the first gadget that we'll be creating. We're going to be looking at the total payments and refunds. So first we'll build the year-to-date total payments and refund gadget. So this is a statistic gadget. It's going to show us the total amount that's been paid with refunds also factored in. So it's an overall number showing you the total money in and out. So let's have a look at how we build this. So we click the Add Gadget and then we'll be using the statistic gadget for this one. So you click Add Gadget and it'll add to your dashboard. Then we need to click the link to set this up. And first of all, we need to label it. So we're going to label this total payments and refunds with the pound sign. So we know that it's a pound figure. We're going to pick an icon for our statistic gadget. So there's a long list of icons you can choose from. For this one, we're going to pick finance with the little dollar pound logo. We'll then pick a color to make it a bit more easy to read. So we're going to pick the dark green. The module for this one we're going to use is transaction. And then the function is the sum of the amount. So we want to be summing all these numbers together. And then we're going to add we're going to sum and then we're going to choose the column. So we're summing on the amount column. And then the filter, we're going to finally add the filter in and we're going to use the date, change that to period and look for this year because we want to look at everything within the current year. When that's created, you just press the save button. That's all set up for you. And then you can see we get our lovely statistic gadget on our dashboard. So we'll move on to our next gadget. So we'll be looking now at the year-to-date gadget for the invoices raised. So again, we'll be using a statistic gadget, and this is going to show us the total number of invoices that have been generated for the year. So again, we'll have a look at how we build this. So we're going to click Add Gadget again, and once again, we'll be using the statistic type. So we'll click Add Gadget, and again, that'll add it to the dashboard. Click the link, and that's going to give us the chance to set it up. So the label for this one is just going to be called Invoices Raised. We're going to pick our icon again, and for this one, we're going to use the icon called Clone. So we'll just find that and add that to our gadget. Perfect. We're then going to choose the color again. So we're going to look at using the similar color to the one we used last time to keep it all nice and streamlined. And then this time we'll be using the invoice module. The function this time is going to be count because we're going to be counting how many invoices. We don't want to sum them all together. We want to count how many invoices we've got. Then we're going to add a couple of filters on. So the first one is going to be looking at the status is not in temporary. We don't want any invoices to be counted that are in the temporary status. So we will be, that's the first filter. Click the plus button to add in another one. And this time we'll be looking at date generated. So we want to be looking at invoices generated this year. And then we press save, and that is going to give us our invoices raised this year gadget. You can then move it around. So we're going to move that underneath our total payments gadget. And then we are ready to move on to the next one. So the final one we're going to be looking at creating for the invoices section is the year-to-date gadget for payment method usage. So this is going to be using the summary gadget type. It's going to show us the total transaction amount, the number of transactions per transaction method. So it's a really handy gadget to get an understanding of which methods are just most popular. It's going to work with any transactions created through your basket. So you like to see your choice of payment gateway in here. So that could be Stripe, a Payo, or WellPay, for example. And it's also going to work with any transactions logged manually by your admin team, as well as any transactions bought in via imports and the API integration. So we'll have a look at how this gadget is built. So again, we're going to click the Add Gadget button. And this time we're going to be using the summary gadget. So we'll click Add Gadget again, and that's going to add it to our dashboard. Click the link to set the gadget up. And then first of all, again, we'll label that. So we'll label this payment method usage. And then we are going to go straight into picking the module, which this time will be transaction. So we'll select that from our list. We're then going to add the columns in. So the first one we're going to add is transaction method. So this will be looking at all the different types of transactions that we have, and we're going to leave that as group by. We're then going to add another column in, which is the amount. So we're looking at the amounts in the invoices. We're going to put that into descending order. We're going to rename this column to be total amount so we understand it a bit more. And then we're going to change that to sum because we want to sum those numbers together. And then finally, we're going to add in the ID column. We're going to label that as transactions, and then we're going to count that. So we'll change that from group by to count. So that's all our columns set up. And then finally, we just need to add in the filter. So again, we're going to be using date. We're going to change that to period in the middle, and we'll change that to this year. So we're only looking at those transactions that have taken place this year. So when we press save, you can see here now, we've got our summary gadget. We can see that we've got the 3 transaction methods that we have in our platform down the side, the total amount for each transaction, and then the count of how many transactions have been made per transaction method.
All right. So now we're going to be looking at our total overdue amount. So this is going to be our overdue balances gadget. So let's build the gadget that shows us the total amount across our invoices. So this is going to be a statistic gadget that shows us the total outstanding amount for invoices that have a due date in the past. This gadget is great for providing you a snapshot of how much is overdue across your customer base. So looking at how this gadget is built, again, add a gadget, and this first one is going to be a statistic. This is now going to be labeled total overdue. So this is going to be a total overdue amount. Again, adding in that pound sign so we know the currency. Going to select an icon, so I'm going to select a little exclamation mark because we've got overdue invoices, so we are exclaiming, and choosing that dark red color. Our module is going to be invoice, and then our aggregate function is going to be sum, and then we're going to sum on the column of total outstanding or outstanding there. And then finally, we're just adding a filter in. So a couple of filters. Firstly, the status of the invoices is in outstanding and part completed. And then the same filter that we've had across all our gadgets, that the date due is in the period of the past. So there we go. So now I can see my total amount due of my overdue invoices. So now we're going to move on to overdue, the total number of overdue invoices. So let's build our statistic gadget to show us how many invoices are overdue. So looking at how this is built, we add the gadget, select our statistic gadget, click to configure, and then once again, we're going to be giving this a header. So label this overdue invoices. Our icon, I'm going to use that clone icon. Color is going to be dark red, again, to match my other gadget. Using the invoice module, and my aggregate function is going to be count, because I'm just counting the number of invoices. And then adding those filters in again, this is the same as the module I've created previously to sum the amounts. So date due is the period of the past, and the status is in outstanding and part completed there. Just resize my gadget, move that around, and then we are ready to go. Okay, and then finally in this section, we're going to do the total overdue invoices per customer. So let's build the gadget to show us a summary of overdue invoices per customer. This summary gadget shows us the total outstanding invoice amount, the number of outstanding invoices per invoice target. So this is great for highlighting customers that have a lot of overdue invoices or a high outstanding balance value. So looking at how this is built now, adding a gadget, we go to select a summary gadget and click to configure. The header for this gadget is going to be overdue invoices per customer. Our module this time is going to be invoice. And then looking at our columns, our first column is going to be the target. So that's who is going to be paying for this invoice. And I'm going to relabel that customer. The second column here is going to be the amount outstanding, and I'm going to be summing that up and also choosing in descending order. So I have my highest value at the top. And then last column I'm going to be adding in is the ID. So this is just going to be the number of invoices. So we are going to be counting how many IDs there are, and then finally just renaming that invoice there. So for our filters, the status is going to be outstanding and part completed to show us those non-paid invoices. And again, my date due is going to be period of the past. Save that, resize it, and now we have our overdue balances section complete.
Perfect. So moving on to our refund gadgets, we're going to build a gadget that shows us the total amount that's been refunded in the last 14 days. So this is a statistic gadget. It's going to show us the total amount that's been refunded in the last 7 days. We're going to be doing this by summing up the value of transactions when their value is less than 0. So this is basically showing it's a refund rather than a payment that we've taken. So we'll have a look at how we build this one. So once again, we'll be clicking that Add Gadget button, scrolling down and back to the statistic gadget. When we select configure, we can then add in our label first of all. So we'll be refund amount in the last 14 days. Again, including the pound sign so we know what currency it's in. And then we will be picking our icon for the statistic. So for this one, we're going to use back arrow. And the module, we'll pick our color again. So we'll go for our blue this time. And then we'll be on to the module, which is transaction. We're then going to be using the function of sum, and we'll be summing on the column of amount. So then we want to add some filters in here. So the first thing we need to do is add the column for amount, and we're going to be looking for less than 0. So that's going to trigger where it tells us it's a refund. And then we'll be adding in the date column, because we want to be looking at period. And in this situation, we'll be using the last 14 days. So that's that one created when you press save, and then you'll see in the last 14 days, we've had minus 180, so that is £180 in refunds. So now we're going to look at building a gadget that's going to tell us how many refunds have been processed in the last 14 days. So we've just done the sum of them. Now we're going to be looking at how many. So again, we'll be using the statistic gadget. It's going to show us the total number of refunds that have happened in the last 14 days. So I'll show you how this one is built too. So again, we just click that Add Gadget button and going back down to the statistic gadget, scrolling down and clicking the configure. So we'll put our labeling for this one, and we'll call this one refunds processed in the last 14 days. So we know exactly what this gadget is showing you. And then when we've created our header in our label, we'll change the icon, and this time we're going to use the clone one again. We'll pick our color again, so we'll be using that dark blue again to keep it all nice and streamlined. And the module for this one we'll be using is transaction. And the function for this will be count, because we want to show how many refunds we've done. Again, we're going to be adding the similar filters to before, so the amount will be less than 0. Again, that's going to indicate that's the refund, because we're not making money, we're giving money back. And the date, we'll be looking at the period of the last 14 days. So we'll get that set up. Press save, and then when that will be our gadget added to our dashboard. We can then move it again underneath, resize it to make it exactly the size we want. And then that's that gadget created. And then the next one we'll be looking at is building a gadget that lists all of the refunds from the last 14 days. So this is a data grid gadget. It's just going to list all of the transactions in the last 14 days, including the amount, the transaction method, and who processed it. So let's have a look at how we build this one. So we click the Add Gadget button, and then this time we'll be clicking the data grid. So we just click Add Gadget, and then scroll down once again, and we'll be clicking to configure. So for the header, for the label for this one, we'll be labeling this refunds in the last 14 days, because that's what the data grid will be showing. So when we've put our label in, we're now going to choose our module, which will be transaction. And then this is where we can choose the columns that we want to see in this data grid, very similar to any of the data grids you use day to day, same sort of method. So we're picking the date, and we'll be doing that in descending order. We're going to leave the invoice reference in. And we're going to add another column by pressing the little plus button, and we're going to add in transaction method. We're going to leave pay full name in. We want to keep the amount and the tax, and we use the little minus button to get rid of any extra columns that we don't want. Then we're going to add some filters in. So filter amount less than 0, again, to show that it's a refund. And then we're going to put that date filter in because we only want to see refunds in the last 14 days. So once again, it'll be date, period, and last 14 days. So it's a really nice, simple one to set up. When we press save, that'll be then in our data grid. And once again, you can resize it to be the height and width that you would like. So that is our refund section of the dashboard created.
Perfect. So moving on to our final section now, and this is our course performance gadgets. So let's build our profit per course gadget first. So this profit is going to, this profit gadget is going to show us the total income and expense for each course template. So this is going to show us the overall profit for courses this year, grouped by course template. So this gadget is great for comparing your courses to see what brings you in the most revenue throughout the year and which you spend the most on. So let's have a look at how this gadget is built. Once again, we're clicking Add Gadget. And this is going to be a summary gadget. Clicking the link to configure. And this is going to be labeled course profit. Now for the module, we're going to be using course date. And our first column here is going to be the course template name. And this is going to be left in group by, because we're grouping by the name of our course. The second column here is going to be income. And we're going to rename this expected income. Expected total income. And then this one, we're going to use a sum. So next up, we've got our expenditure. And we're going to label this one expected total expenditure. And again, with this one, we're going to sum. So we're grouping the courses together, but summing the amounts. And then our last column here is going to be that profitability forecast, labeled expected total profitability. And again, summing that one up of the amounts. And then we're going to add in a filter for the start date of the course is in the period of this year. So we can add in our to descend by our profitability as well to show the highest revenue courses at the top. So once I save that, you can now resize this and it shows you your course template names with your highest performing courses at the top there. Okay, so then now let's build a gadget that shows us the expected profit numbers for upcoming courses. So this is a data grid gadget, which shows you a list of courses in date order with the most upcoming course at the top. This includes the forecast income, expenditure, and profitability for each course. And this is a great gadget to identify you have any courses coming up that are not going to be profitable, like this maternity yoga course, for example. So let's have a look at how this gadget is built. we are going to add a gadget. And this one is going to be a data grid gadget. Scrolling down and clicking to configure our gadget, we're going to add that header of upcoming courses. The module for this one is going to be course date. So we're wanting to look at the upcoming courses. And then we can choose our columns. So I'm going to choose the label, which is the name of the course. I'm going to choose the start date and the end date. I'm going to choose the course status and the income, the expenditure, and the profitability. And I can use those little arrows at the end to rearrange my columns there to have them in order. And then adding in our filters. Firstly is the start date of period of this year. Oh, sorry, period of last 30 days even. Next 30 days, upcoming courses, not past ones. And then our course status is in fully booked, in progress, or available. So we don't want to see any cancelled ones in there. And then an optional filter here for the parent course ID is empty. So this will hide any courses that are sessions. We can sort that in ascending order. Show us our courses that are happening first at the top there. So we've just got 2 upcoming courses and we can see the profit and expenditure across them.
Perfect. So that's all 11 gadgets, giving you a solid overview of your annual finance data. So we're going to have a quick recap of what we've covered. Just a reminder, the Q&A box is open too. So if you've got any questions, please pop them in there and we'll go through those shortly. So let's go through what we've covered today. So first we've covered on reporting on year-to-date figures. We've looked at reporting on overdue balances, reporting on the refund data, and finally looking at your course financial performance data, all within that finance dashboard. So as mentioned, the Q&A box is open.
So over to you guys now if you've got any questions for us. So whilst they're coming, we have got a couple of questions that we've heard about dashboards before. So we'll go through them, but it does look like we've had some questions in. So I'm going to ask you the question, Jack. So can I build this dashboard so that my whole team can access it?
Yes, but you do need to be a super admin. So super admins can go to the dashboard page within the administration panel, within the platform, and add this new area to the existing administrator dashboard. And that's going to make sure that everyone can see that area that you just created for them.
Real. And if I'm building this, I've built this gadget and dashboards this year, will I need to build this dashboard again next year?
No, you won't need to. So how we set the dashboards up and with the filters that we've used the date range of this year. So that's going to mean that as soon as 2026 arrives, the dashboard's going to be referring to invoices, your payments, and your courses, all with the 2026 date. So you don't need to go in and edit any of those gadgets to change the year. It just changes over to the next year nice and seamlessly.
Perfect. And we've had a really good question come in from Tom. So do we know how dashboard usage affects the platform performance? So for example, if we create 10 dashboards with 15 gadgets, all of which are auto refreshing every 5 seconds, could that slow the platform down? Now, it's a great question. So I work on the support team. So I see this coming in a lot. Typically, if you have your dashboard gadgets filtered accordingly, so they're not trying to load, hundreds of years worth of data, you should be absolutely fine and not see any performance issues. If you are concerned about it, you can limit the gadgets on your dashboard. So each time you load that, it's going to just be taking up less data from the platform. Yeah.
I think the auto refresh is also really important to cover. Auto refresh we don't really recommend to use unless you really need to have that refreshing live. So if you're going to be sat on that dashboard page for maybe an hour, do you need that refreshing every 5 seconds? Every time you go back to the dashboard, that data is going to pull through live. So if you make a change in, say, the data grid, or you book another course or a payment's made, when you go back to that data, the dashboard, it's going to have updated for you anyway. So it's only really if you're going to be sat on that dashboard for a long period of time, would we say that you use the auto refresh. It's not something common that people use because people don't tend to just sit on their dashboard.
I've seen it used when people will display a dashboard like in the office, so kind of
Yeah.
put it up on screen. And also just another thing on the auto refresh is if you're not actually on the dashboard, it's not refreshing in the background either. It's only going to refresh that dashboard that you have open, and it's only going to load at that time. So I had lots to say on that one, didn't I? So great question, Tom. Thanks for that. Okay.
Perfect. So yeah, if there's no more questions, I think we'll wrap up.
Wrap up, yeah. Right. So finally, just thank you very much for taking the time to join the session today. We hope this was helpful, and hopefully you'll be rushing off to create some dashboards of your own. If you would like any support in creating those, I and my colleagues on the support desk will be available to support you with that. So you can either get help by raising a ticket directly from your platform or by calling us directly. So thanks so much. Goodbye.
Have a good day.